here we begin on the 14th. The other video is downloaded, and the 14th of November now, and we're beginning production immediately on part 3. Part 3. And we're just going to film as much of part 3 and part 4 as possible and make them one movie, because these are short stories that are shorter than the other ones. So you probably don't have a full narrative with the whole thing like you did the other two. You have short stories. So we pick up where the other one kind of left off, with some of our characters having gotten together to do some things, and right away, by the time we get to page 3 here, page 4, we encounter Sean Hayes, who is not supposed to be in the story. Changed to Boyd. Also, there's a Tipper Riker, who's not supposed to be Tipper Riker later on in the series. She's supposed to be later on, and she's not a colonel. But there's a colonel version in the 4th story that's doesn't be a colonel. So this is based on the last third of the first book or first season, and these are a bunch of short stories. They were build your own adventure stories, aired in a Brown Press Universal, but never released. Then they were created for Spacetime Eye in the 2020s, put up online. Spacetime Eye, that's what this is from. And this is a actually earlier version of that script. And here we have, and yeah, this is that. And we're going to start off with the opening scene here in the teaser of this story. Yeah, it can't be Hayes. And it can't be Dewick yet, because she's still recovering from the planet. So I'm thinking, instead of it being Hayes, it is simply it's probably the Barbodian lady from the other story, who's gone on to it's probably her instead, just because that would make the most sense. So that's who it's going to be. It's going to be the Borg lady. That's probably who it's going to be, because we don't want to introduce anybody new, really. We don't want to introduce, this other character, let's introduce them, here they are. I don't want to do that with the third and final chapter. Makes no sense. So we're going to do this. Yeah. Okay, making of, behind the scenes here. We're just going to do about an hour of this and stop. Well, let's on the tape. Then we're going to stop for the night shoot here for the evening. And we want to do Sean Hayes talking to AI computer. And decided that instead of trying to reinvent the whole story and have them be like, oh, we need to throw in the Janoli character, but then is she related to the other Janoli guy? And ooh, that'll be complicated. How do we do that? Just make it Rashenko. That way there's no relation to anybody. He's not supposed to be related. The names were changed. That's why it would be related. But if it's just Rashenko, that solves that problem. It's just another guy. He's there. He's back. He's on the ship. And it's funnier because it's the Klingon guy. So let's do that. And he's talking to these guys that came to report. And they are sort of in the same general base building lab thing anyway. So making of, we're going to stop for the night. Just because there was a night shoot testing a little bit of the teaser. And we eventually went through to all of scene 1. And I think that's it for tonight. Yeah. We didn't intend to actually start on this today. I could keep going a little bit more if you want, but I think I am going to stop, because it is kind of dark in here. Yeah, I'm going to stop. Okay, so making of. Starting on scene 4, the last scene in this particular episode, the 40-minute episode that is this story. We're going to finish this episode today. We have, and there's 2 other 40-minute episodes roughly of this section, and then that's why we need some more from the next book, because these aren't 40 minutes when you put them together. They're like 30, so under 30. I think they're going to be under 30. So yeah, so you have to one more, probably the California Divided one. After this, so we're just gonna jump to that one. That's probably what we're gonna do, unless the middle one with the Pine Planet thing is dumb. Then we won't use that one. Then we'll have to get another one from the fourth. We have a 4th story printed, but I don't want to do all of it. In other words, I think it's gonna be okay though. So let's do this. Also, making of the character of Rhonda Julio Bedlam is just in another version of Elysian in this version, because we're in movie 3, we're in the trilogy, we're in the finale. She's in disguise as an Elysian, and she's not, because the character is a little weird. It was a little odd. There's this character, oh, Bedlam. That sounds like something naughty. It isn't really. Bedlam is chaos. Makes sense that she'd be. So that's what she is. She's one of the Elysians. And then when the other Elysian lady shows up at the end, talks to the fish lady, who can go up on land, apparently. We're going to see that. Another making of. She is just simply an Elysian. That set it up. Why go make it complicated and explain another new character? You know, we needed the Tipper shot in there. We needed the Lep in there. But we did not need the other thing. And he basically screws up, Mako here, basically screws up the mission. And, ruins the contact. Hence the title, Contact Problem. Yeah, so let's do this. Okay, that's making of. This is the end of the scene. Today, it is Project 5, and here. And, we got up to scene 5. Page 42. A day and a half. So, rocketing through the short stories, and this was the first one of them. Yeah. Okay, November 15th, in making of, and, on set here, November 16th, isn't it? No, 15th. Anyway, so we have the character of Tub Tennessee, who is essentially the same thing as Reek, decided that it's just Reek, because why should it suddenly be someone else? Let's not introduce anybody new in like the first 8 minutes of the movie. Let's not do that. It's just Reek and his buddies, and they've done some dastardly things here. I take it he's managed to brainwash the crew into following him. Apparently one of the main characters is going to get killed pretty soon. So, one we haven't seen in a while. Only briefly. Anyway, so here we go. Yeah. So this is making of. This is the end of this chapter for the night. Gone on a little bit later, just to get into page 61 of the movie, of a script that is 118 pages, and may or may not include some parts of part 4. Yeah. So far, it is an interesting script with some reflection on the other characters, and that works. We don't need extras. We just included them because they're part of the story. This guy's kind of. We know that's somebody else, and the TMS thing is kind of funny. The Marshall Sportiest people. But this story was originally a very weird episode. It was a Bring Back Josh Braun episode. It was later reworked as a story of Starship locations, in which it made no sense to have it be Josh Braun's girlfriend or whatever. And it was really weird in the original story. It's really bizarre. The original story, it just didn't make any sense. There was like time travel and trip back in time to recover a famous star that died from outer space-time, bring them to the present so they could be the guy's girlfriend. It was really strange. Yeah. It made no sense. And then there were different versions of it, and the latest version of it was, no, it's actually a version of the Q-created version of Braun, instead. And he doesn't get a girlfriend, he just gets a cult. And they go to a planet, and they're found by a crew that goes to the planet. I believe it was the Chimera A crew found them. Could have been the Legacy crew, though. One of those crews. They found them on the planet, and they wanted to go home, basically. So, anyway, they were the lost children in the story. So that's they've already kind of done that story, but this is another version of it. This is an earlier version of it. This is a version from the 90s. You can say, oh, yeah. Like that comment about the ship being the Fortnite. That was the name of the ship and the game and the story. in that other previous comment. And that story was thought of in 1995. So if there's a game from 2007 or 8 that's called Fortnite, it is a coincidence. I was definitely not thinking of that, and this one either. So there you go. This was also done as a Prospectors episode, and was rejected as that for Prospects being in there, for perspective. And also Pathfinder. Pathfinder has a version of it too. Yeah, there's a lot of these. Yeah. But this version works too because you change the character to Beth Cassins. Pulls Beth Cassins out of time. Because Canary Space fans will know that her character actually gets killed in the second book. But we're not going to produce the second book. So, yeah. This other timeline, she's alive. So, yay. So, yeah, this is the 16th. And we're going to do some filming here on Sunday afternoon. And, yeah, there was a script mistake. It's not something that needs to be reshot. It's a script mistake. This says Act 2, and it's not yet Act 2. There was a chapter left of Act 1 before Interlude in Spacetime. That closes the other story. I wondered why it ended so abruptly and Mako just wasn't in it anymore. That's because we forgot. We were almost going to forget this entire chapter and not shoot it. So let's put this in here before we end up having to do it in post. Yeah, so let's do that. Here we are, beginning on day 3. Episode 1, day 3. It is actually 41 pages, 47 pages, and not 41 pages. And still, it is going to be under 40 minutes, so it's like, well, it's not, yeah. And we put out some of these other ones. Yeah, that did end abruptly. Yeah. Good thing we caught it now. So, making of, come to the end of this one here. And yeah, that was a chapter we didn't do. I changed the ending slightly to match up with the other ones, because some of these characters never appear again in the rest of the story. And we're on the final act. And it also changes some of the other story a little bit, because they weren't supposed to be in the other act. So there's a later scene, if we get to the California Divided, or they renamed it the something else, Vengeance, Clement's Vengeance, and Clement's Rogue and all that, the Victory Saga. It was renamed. There was a character that's name was changed to that of Allison Chi. And then Allison Chi was changed to this Tamara character, the Lacarna character. And that never made any sense anyway. And she was going to have like a boyfriend on the planet. It's going to be a boyfriend scene. I didn't want to add anything extra to the later stuff. This story is literally, well, by page number 51 pages in, which means 41 minutes in. If it's about 90 minutes, a little over 90 minutes, adding a bunch of new people is a dumb idea. So let's just have it end here so far and go from there. This was a Sunday afternoon shoot. Yeah, and then we're back to it looks like they go back to the ship. Also, there was a weird scene where there was an alien mentioning Skippy, and that's because the flight training episode actually happened earlier than this, in the earlier 2016 draft of the story, from the rewrites of Spacetime I, which were included in the story. And that story was earlier than this one, but now it's later. Yeah, if we filmed that story at all. And we may not film the last two stories. We may stop with the Clement's Vengeance one. We may stop there. Because really the other one's kind of dated and screwy. But yeah, let's see what the rest of this is, and go from there. And if this first 90 minutes of this first novel is the good one, then just stay there and just not press our luck with part 4, which was going into book 2 anyway. This is part 3. It's the remainder of book 1, because it was like 500 and some pages. And yeah, so yeah, this is the end of some of our main cast, like immediately. The end of the story, and they're never mentioned again. So they're gone. It's not them later on. So yeah. You don't need to know who everyone is, but yeah, that's kind of the end of them. Yeah, and the other person was changed to the Chi character, was then changed to the Lacarna character. It should not have been. She should have been killed off on this planet by the aliens. Yeah, that's what should have happened. So, yeah. Because it's not that they weren't mentioning it in the script, it's that they are gone from the script. So I added, the aliens must have ambushed them and killed them. Because they were about to, and then they just, like, yell at each other. And I thought, what happens if, okay, because this part right here where this guy over here he just pops up and says, oh, I'm going to join you again. There has to be a reason that he shows up and is there and does something heroic, so to kind of redeem himself a little bit. So he shoots the alien that was eating the Corno character. He shoots her, and shoots the alien. It could be a female. Shoots the alien, and then he says, well, I'm still going to join you. So, yeah, these other guys, well, there had to be the Hayes guy. He had to pop in there and say, like, okay, I'm the one that says this dialogue instead of Arlene, because she just got killed. How could she suddenly get up and go, oh, by the way, I'm going to leave you now, and you're not going to know about my ship? I'd rather have him say, oh, I let you go a couple of times before, I'll let you go again. Because he was the one that let him go. So it was, yeah, it's revealed. Yeah. Also, apparently, Bombshell is wounded there as well. Another version of, we know she's a clone, so there's a bunch of her. Yeah, so continuing with our evening shoot here, because we can. Here is scene 6, as we start allegedly on the 40 Iridani planet, but then refer to it as the other one where they found the alien spiders, which is the Anzadi planet. Yeah, Oasis. So that they're not on 40 Iridani in Vulcan. They mentioned it a few times, but that's actually not what they are. They're just on a planet. Yeah. So yeah. And they're not on the ship here, they're actually down on the planet. Not necessarily in the same room together, but they're on a planet. And then he goes to talk to Sean goes to talk to an alien. But no, they get together pretty quickly. So I would say that no, they're on the planet together. It's just easier. Okay. We're done for the healing. We have 11 minutes of tape. Making of, we are nearing the end of this chapter. It looks like something went screwy with the page numbering, leading to a page getting first and last. But you shot it first, so it worked. But yeah, I'm gonna in the morning start over again, or some point tomorrow, probably a little afternoon actually, and continue filming the movie because it's 10 minutes. It's not enough time to do anything. And yeah, I mean, I could squeeze this out, but yeah, it's not gonna be good. So yeah, that is the end of this chapter, and it was confusing because it was not. Well, I don't think I messed up anything though. I think even though it's backward, it's still. This is a ship. Yeah, that's the unmarked, unpainted, unlabeled Zabulbada story, or some other ship similar to it, tying it into the other series, right in the middle of it, right smack in the middle of it. Oh yeah, I want to also add making of. I kept saying don't add a new person here and there and everything, and don't add that. But these guys are in the script. There's supposed to be, and in the movie there's Cassin's mentioned as a character in the credits as well as a Tipper Riker. They're not new. They're supposed to be in the story. What I meant was by not introducing other characters is not introducing other plot characters that don't go in it. Whereas a pseudo alternate version of the Judge Lady who has been in it makes sense to include a version of her. To establish that not only is she a version of the Judge Lady, she's actually Beth Cassins, who went on to play Diva Clark, which is funny. So, yeah. Donnie Cassins is, of course, the young Picard there. But yeah, or Jeremy Astor, this version. Yeah, there's the ship. That's neat. Yeah, you can put that away. It's just that. So they're all in camera. So the shots are of the ship in camera. Yeah. Speaking of the second unit, note that this scene is a little changed from the script because she doesn't appear again in the story at all. So yeah, she yeah, so it's revealed that she is actually the turncoat. And the other one's there. So they used the device. They got away. But also, I want to use some of this dialogue that's in here, but not in the way she filmed it. Okay. Yeah, the ending is slightly changed. She doesn't appear in the story anymore. That character, or in any of the other stories anymore. She's just in that one. And yeah, the twist is that she and the others were part of the Elysian the whole time. And yeah, she was one of them the whole time. She was Barboda in the other story. That makes the other story make sense. It's like, oh, okay, she was. Yeah, she is the turncoat. So unlike in the Baby Driver where we got the guy wrong, this earlier story we got the guy right. Also, this earlier story is kind of a sitting on the edge of a forever riff and stuff. And other stuff that's going on. Yeah. Yeah, so I thought to chime in on what this was. This short story about the space-time thing. Originally, this was a rejected Starcrackers script about Joshua Braun, the commander of the original that the ship was named after. The kid that died. In fact, I'm going to set this up. So, starting out with the making of at 1:30 p.m. Days on 17th of November. They've gone to a base near the ship, I guess. I guess it's supposed to be the ship. But it's more of a holding area because they don't actually decided that they don't actually go to the ship yet. They go to a lab or base that's there. Which makes more sense. So yeah, let's do this. Yeah. Behind the scenes, making of. Sean Hayes and Alex Rozhenko encounter each other, which throws it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Sean Hayes his lines to our regular that's been in the other two books. And because Rozhenko should be the guy that she goes to and not... Yeah, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. So Sean Hayes' character at this point is going back to being the colonel that's in charge of the ship. Comes to them with Drumlin. That makes more sense. So yeah. Put it in making of. There's a scene where then she's introduced to Rozhenko, who was actually Rozhenko in the script. And that scene no longer happens, nor does the part where the other ones are there. We're going to go right to, which won't really lose anything, Drumlin meeting the people, having come to the ship. So we're even going to not do this. We're going to have him come to the ship and meet with her in this room. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And so this is Drumlin. And yeah. Scenes making of. There is a brief one-page scene, less than a page, where for some reason Rena Willis and Joe Morey break up. Just to throw that in there, they break up right here. I'm not sure why they got together in the first place, and why they would go there and mention it in the first place. It's in the story, but I don't think we need it necessarily. We can kind of add it to them entering the meeting room to talk to the other ship. I think that's more punchy. So we can do that. Yeah. And there's a lot of... Ooh, Nitro and Morey show up and talk about mating rituals. And with the dog guy. Why is that? There's some... Okay, we don't really need a little character development between the dog and the cat and the other guy. We don't really need that. So, I'm changing up this ending here. Last 3 pages. On the other tape, because there's not going to be enough on this one. So it's going to be a B unit thing. And we're going to wrap up this episode. And, yeah. So, I want to change the ending of this because they have a space battle. And it doesn't really need one. Just have the colonists show up on the planet. Like they're surrounded. Like in the beginning of the other story. The beginning of the story. So they show up. And they basically like kind of duke it out on the ground. Because that makes more sense. Yeah. Do that instead. And change this up a little bit. Have them down the planet. And yeah. And yeah. because Varys is not. Yeah, note that Varys is not in the story later on. Shouldn't be. She's the twist is that she's actually this turncoat and stuff. It's actually the other one. Yeah. What's going on? Yeah, so it's what a twist. So yeah, we're at the end of this, and I'm gonna, because literally there's 12 minutes, so you're not gonna be able to put anything in there, not in 12 minutes. So in this timeline, I'm making as we close in on the last bit of this, really, instead of it being Skippy again, because Skippy's clearly dead, he's dead. It's not Skippy, it's Hertzman, and this is the scene where him and Hertzman sacrifice themselves to try and save the ship, and that's what leads to the incident of 2404, because they're down on the planet. It's a different guy, different girl, different timeline, so it doesn't matter. But now this scene is going to kind of make sense. It would be them. They've abandoned the ship to go fight the bad guys. It's just kind of dumb, but yeah. That is the end of book 3. And there is indeed a little more that we get to do probably tomorrow. But that was the end of book 3. That was the end of book 3. That was the last few pages of the book. It's not 80 minutes, so we've got to use at least one story from the other story to make it 90 minutes. We're not going to bother with Clement's Vengeance. We may bother with a piece of the California one. Clement's Vengeance is just a mess. There's no reason to. And also, because you killed off this guy, Dill is not going to. It was originally Bulmer. And Bulmer dies in this story, so there's no reason to have Bulmer. Originally it was Bulmer, and then it was changed to Flip Dill in the script because you killed Bulmer. But in the story. But it shouldn't be either of them. Just have them on the Backlodu planet and then show the California one. Jump to the last one. You don't need to have the Vengeance one. I don't think this story needs to end with something like a con thing with a bad guy villain getting his comeuppance necessarily. That's not how this should end. It should end like a trippy Star Trek space-time thing, goofy thing. Probably, will involve the Elysian and Frumlin and all that. But yeah, it doesn't need to, yeah. So that's this. That's what we've done. That was very cool. We knew what we had to do, so just shot it. Making of. This is the beginning of the scene where Bulmer jumps out of his aircraft after he has crashed it on the planet. It's not a landing, it's a crash. And he's jumped out of the ship, and he's like all fucked up. He's all messed up. So yeah, he's like, oh, that was a great landing. Yeah, that's what's going on. So yeah, let's film this. Okay, a correction in the script. This isn't a retake or anything. We're just going along. Page 89. The character of Skippy is actually Shailen. So even though they call him Skippy, it's Shailen. They've nicknamed him that. It makes more sense that it's him. In fact, they could address that. And rather than introducing a new, we're going to make fun of Wesley. No, he's one of the dog aliens. It only makes sense. So yeah. Now we're going to go on to this other scene. Now, quick making of right here. This episode, making it right here. I've recast Stevens in this scene because it shouldn't be her. This is where Emma Lawson shows up. Because for this part right here, because she's not a tactical officer. The other one isn't either, but she's got to be here somewhere. So here she is. So yeah, okay, this scene then, yeah. Question here: is it Kate Cassins or is it Mariner? It shouldn't be Kate Cassins, but it kind of should, in a way. But she's a traitor and she ran off, so you kind of, for it to be her, yeah. The other Kate was Hesson, so that's going to screw that up. It's Mariner. It's got to be Mariner. Yeah, it's got to be because otherwise, yeah, for the other lady to be there, like in this, it would just like, wait a minute, she was a traitor in the very last scene in the story. Can't be her. It's got to be Mariner. And that's who it would be. It would be Mariner. So, yeah. So it's going to be change it to Mariner. So, okay, making of, page 97. Yeah, Skippy's clearly dead at this point. The machine hit him in the back of the head and clearly took his head off. So he's not in the other scene later on because he's dead. So so yeah, that he would be dead. So yeah, the scene later on. Oh, I want to fight him. Yeah, that's not him. It's someone else. Anyway, so yeah. So making of, we did 11 minutes on this tape, and then launch. They imply that Hertzman just died. It's not in the script. She's just dead. He dropped dead. They didn't show that. He's dead, apparently. Then the other two go to Tipper and Duick attempt to go to a base but then return to the ship. I'm not sure what's up with that. Yeah, there's some oddities in here. Yeah. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah. Quick behind the scenes, making of. Hey, it's not Hayes, because we've been changing Hayes to the other guy. It's not Hayes, it's Ginobili. Yeah, so that's what we changed it to Ginobili. Last time we see this guy. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, making of. At this point, we have left that story, and there's still a little more. Yeah, we try to wrap this up. Just make up something. That kind of, yeah, we don't want to go into Clemens Rogue. It doesn't. And it's not, it was funny, but not nearly as funny as we thought it was when we first wrote it. I don't know why. Actually filming it. I mean, it's funny, but yeah, it's not the laugh out loud story of the century. Yeah, they're in a vehicle. They fled the scene, basically. That's the 19th. It's really an error that happened here. It's like a bait and switch that happened because you made that other person Beth Cassins, and it is supposed to be Beth Cassins. When we see Barboda, who also calls herself Beth Cassins, she has to be another one because the space-time eye is messing with history. But there needs to be a little explanation, because otherwise it's like, wait a minute, that's not Beth Cassins. And I think there's a way out of that. In that, before we go on to Plunderers of Zydios here. Yeah, she's Mariner knows that it's Barboda. Other girl over here, she thinks it's Beth Cassins. And Barboda is Beth Cassins. But Mariner is going to say it's not. And then they're going to mention that, oh, it's okay because it disappeared anyway. It was a changeling. So it's as an equivalent of an Elysian, basically. So it's revealed that she was the Elysian all along. And, and that she has disappeared. So this scene needs to be in there just to convey that there's an Elysian connection thing. Thing going on. Yeah. You might even have an Elysian say that, but maybe you don't need that. I mean, the other one turns into another lady when she leaves. So Varys, who it was a character, is just the judge lady, is the other Cassin's sister. That's not that confusing. It's just that's her. But she's already kind of out of the story, and so is the other one. So yeah, there's some confusion as to why she was calling herself that, because originally in the script she was supposed to be that. It was the wrong character. I don't want to reshoot all of her scenes. I want it to just be revealed that she is the sister of the other one, pretending to be her, because there was a Varys in the other one. They're like sister clone whatever things going on. That's what happens. So that's kind of what I want to do there. Just because the space-time eye is messing with him. Either that or you just... I don't want to reshoot the Barboda stuff. I want that to be the final Barboda scene. So that is the final Barboda scene. I guess what you could do is cut to this character over here saying that the Barboda lady disappeared, or whatever. They're inspecting the wreckage there. But I don't think you need to go that far. I don't think we need to see them disappearing. I think we need to see dialogue indicating different aliases were going on and they've been duped. And that they'll never see them again because, yeah, they're... yeah. Well, we have another plant in there, so yeah, we have Tipper Shot, who is still out there. Yeah, she's in the other one. Yeah. So there's all kinds of Elijahs. In fact, okay, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, making of. Having Michael Flipdill's character no longer in the story makes more sense. Rhonda Bedlam Julio is also not in the story. It's just Tipper Shot taking up that mantle of that character. And Flipdill is going to be Rozhenko. So rather than having there be a later Flipdill and he fights in the story, it's literally the other guy. That way their alleged plot is hammered home quickly, and the other stuff doesn't happen because it wouldn't. So it's Rozhenko instead of Flip, which makes more sense. It makes the other story not happen. You're sort of remaking the Plunder of Sidio story. That's what's going on. Yeah. So it'll work better with Rozhenko. Brief making of and change. This is not Flipdill because we've established that Flipdill is dead. It should have been changed anyway, so it should have been either Tipper or Rozhenko. But no, this scene here is actually not them. It's the detective and one of the Matrix brothers instead. This makes the scene make more sense. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah. Detective and the Matrix brother. They find this guy dead. So yeah. So so what's so I thought to chime in on this particular story. It was an early Josh Braun episode. Brief summary. The name Josh Braun is just taken from a person from Pine Hill, as many of the other names are. But this was a particular person who actually died during the era of the role-playing game in January of 1988. And so the ship was named in his honor. The Starcracker ship was named it was going to be Graham Cracker Chronicles, but then it was changed to the Josh Braun. And this was one of the scripts. Of course, the role-playing game existed before the 90s stories. So this goes back to the role-playing game, so it does go back to the Apple games as well. It's one of those. And in this particular story, this particular premise, it was a little weird. Early on in literature period or literature class, one of the reports was the Diary of Anne Frank, and so I just and having watched City on the Edge of Forever many times, there's the classic Ellison Star Trek episode, and of course Terminator and Terminator 2 at that point. Terminator 2 had come out, and so I was all, what would be kind of a cool Twilight Zone kind of story, as if the hologram version of Josh Braun, who was turned into a real person by Q in the role playing game. So there's a version of him that's alive. Basically, they made a synth of him. Basically, he figures out time travel, and he accidentally uses his time travel ship. It goes back to the 40s because he's obsessed with Anne Frank, and somehow, which is really weird. Why use a real person? When I do what Harlan Ellison did and make up Edith Keeler out of whole cloth and just say, okay, it's not really anybody famous. It's just, it'd be like abducting Elvis or something, or abducting Michael Jackson, which they also did with time travel in Silly Trek. And Spuds MacKenzie still, so there was, and Back to the Future people were abducted by the Silly Trek gang as well. And they were real in that universe. And so Marty and Doc go on a Silly Trek adventure. That story was actually rejected by us in the first season. We didn't want to do that one. So here's another one that was rejected immediately after producing. But remnants of that story still exist. Weird space colony story type of thing. It seems like Meridian from Deep Space Nine, except this story goes back to 1990. Deep Space Nine did not exist yet.
Did not exist yet. Didn't exist. 89, 90, somewhere around there. So it was during the beginning of Starship Locations. It was Starcracker's Graham Cracker Chronicles story. It was one of, the other one was the other Graham Cracker Chronicles stories. There was two of them in there. The role-playing thing, Space Time, I was also Space Time Wins. There was a crossover with those, just because stories we rejected ended up in the pile in part of the game. The games were never finished fully, never put out, never produced. But there were stories, and this is one of them. And the original premise was that the Josh Braun character apparently made a colony for himself by going back and finding that character, that actual like famous person, and because she was going to die anyway, he pulled her out of space time. And now you might say, oh, you're thinking of that Millennium show with the airplane people getting abducted and stuff. That was after this. That was after this as well. It's 1990. I think that movie came out in like 95 or something like that. No, a little bit later. But yeah, and 12 Monkeys as well, which came out later as well. Both those movies. It's a little bit more like 12 Monkeys. But yeah, there was a show about that too. So the idea of somebody grabbing a famous person to be in time travel is also similar to Quantum Leap, which was also on the air in the 80s. So it probably was more. It's more of a Quantum Leap thing. What would happen if Sam rescued somebody from the 40s? It's completely ridiculous and kind of a little offensive, but only because it make it a real person. At least Quantum Leap back in its first couple seasons always made it a fictional person, so it wasn't really a real person. It affect the timeline. So in the Millennium movie, it was about an airplane that crashed, where the airplane people are abducted by the aliens as their plane is about to crash. That's what that was about. Not to be confused with the Langoliers, which had a similar plot earlier, so it might have been inspired by that. Anyway, so yeah, the idea is that he did this, and that he came back to the present, to his future, to the Star Trek universe, the next generation, and Picard and crew have to stop him and tell him, you can't do that. You have to go back and put this person back where they belong, because they can't change the course of history if she's somewhere in time. Change the course of history. It's like sitting on the edge forever. It's basically so. Obviously, we couldn't use it. But in this version, all that's been changed, and it's someone else. And in this version, they even changed it to Cassins, and it was Whitman in the rewrite. It's a made-up name, which is weird. It's a weird idea. Yeah, don't know what I was thinking, but I was 19 or 20, and I didn't know what I was thinking. but yeah, yeah. So this is an early story about time travel and stuff. I got the idea being that idea is similar to that. If you think about it, it's similar to Tron Legacy as well, where he gets a digital girlfriend we never hear about. It's mentioned briefly in the third sequel in Ares. And it's kind of the same idea, but a celebrity. At the time, a celebrity of the 40s, celebrity from two generations earlier, grabbed him at the time. Didn't grab somebody cool like somebody from the 60s, grabbed somebody from the 40s. Anyway, so yeah, but yeah, so it would have been the 60s if it was my generation. But what's weird about that is like Josh Braun, the character, the kid from Pine Hill that died in '88, he wouldn't have really gone for that kind of a story. He probably wouldn't have liked it. It's one of the reasons it was immediately rejected, but we saved a version of it. And the Elysian thing refers to something else. That's the Libyan originally, the Libyan terrorism. So it's another Libya episode. Also, there's a bunch of other stuff going on. If he'd been Libby, he probably wouldn't have minded because he's from space. He would have done that. But yeah, yeah. So it's changed to this colony that's on the planet, and then you probably say, oh, you're thinking of Deep Space Nine Meridian, and as I had said before, Deep Space Nine didn't exist yet. Wasn't even a thing. But the idea of a lost Roanoke type colony on a planet discovered and then pulled out of space-time thing, or a lost colony of people pulled out of space-time, goes back to, in the sci-fi trope, to probably Planet of the Apes, which had a colony in that one too. So it's an old, and Twilight Zone in the 50s, probably earlier than that. So it's not like they haven't done that. Except instead of in the Kal Kat version, they don't go back to destroy Hitler. They go back to grab somebody that was going to be killed by him in space time and rescue them, so our protagonist can have a girlfriend. The story was also rewritten, retconned, into when they found the Miriam planet children who in Starship locations have disappeared. They got to go find the children. Through the course of the series, they've laid clues to a season, cover the clues until they actually find them. And there's the synth version of Josh Braun there on the planet. He's got the Lost Colony with him. So it's kind of already been done, but it's been done different there. And they find his Lost Colony. And presumably, in that version, they accept his Lost Colony and take them back to space to begin the episode. In the Valentine's Day episode. All that. That's when they found him. So yeah, that's the story of that episode. Yeah, it was that's pretty wild. Yeah, and I don't really remember what that diary was about, honestly. But yeah, I'm not even sure whether there was a completed report of that story. I don't think that it ended up getting finished. So, but yeah, it's a weird idea. But yeah, okay, yeah. It's sitting on the edge of forever. I was ripping off Star Trek because most of it was a rip off Star Trek. Now we can say parody of Star Trek. But there's the story of the 40s group rescued from the concentration train, rescued into space, never seen again because they're gonna be wiped out. To the future, to the 24th century, where Picard and crew said, "Don't do that. You have to put them back." Because he's all stodgy and stuff. And then they have to put him back. And they put him back. In this version, I changed the ending slightly so that, well, they're going to have a space battle and then they're going to use their ship and go up to hyperspace at the end. And I thought that they don't really need a space battle. What they need to do is go back down to the colony planet because it just jumps immediately to a space battle and then they leave. No, have them go down to the colony planet and face them in person and then reveal that the other lady is actually the person that, yeah, that's kind of an interesting twist. So basically, at the very end there, yet another twist that reminded me of later on when I saw the movie Baby Driver. It reminded me of that because there was this scene in the story in which in the movie, well, there was a judge that looked like the Kevin Spacey character at the end. And I thought that, oh, maybe they had him disguised as a judge, like in this earlier story when there was a judge lady who was playing this other lady, and she's actually a turncoat. So that judge lady is at the end of this one. It's not ripping off Baby Driver at all. It's that this predates it by, years, 27 years. So yeah, it came out in 2017, and this was 1990. And so, yeah, and I said that about the Fortnite ship too. That was that. Yeah, the other story, the Fortnite ship. Yeah, there wasn't a Fortnite game at that point. That was much later in the 2000s, early 2010s, much earlier. But that name for the name of a space crawler vehicle just sounds cool. So it doesn't even look anything like the game. It's just a name. Like they could have called it the Raptor. It would have sounded cool. It would have been BSG. They could have called it anything. But they haven't called it that. And so I threw in a line of dialogue where he goes, "Oh, yeah, not to be confused with later on in the 1990s role-playing game," which is a double spoof because he's referring to the role-playing game that was in the 90s as well as the 21st century version of it. Yeah. But yes, so yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, there you have the story of this one episode decided to do with no references at all to what it originally was at all. You got Hayes playing a different character. You got the other one in there. You got Rodzenko, the other one. The girlfriend scene was originally his wife, but that didn't make sense, so it's girlfriend. Also, that's how you can have the guy and the girlfriend in the finale if you get to that version of the finale, which you might not. I mean, we are about an hour in with the end of today's shoot, and you probably aren't going to do that. You're probably just going to do the other two, and yeah, a 90-minute movie. You don't need to do California Divided or whatever it's called now, Next Colony or whatever, Colony Divided or whatever it is. Probably not going to do that one just because it doesn't really work. It's not fun. I suppose if a story's not fun, no. The next one is funny. The next two are funny. They're funny episodes. So maybe one is the next one is the next one is a Silver Cruiser one, the Silverfish Squad story, the one that now defunct company that was doing Gumby accused me of plagiarism while being interviewed. I thought for sure I must have stolen this from somewhere else because it was just too funny. Where did I get this from? I wrote it. It was funny. I wrote it. Silverfish Squad. Well, Mark's Cards and I wrote it. He thought of the characters. Tipper shot for some reason, or for instance, a tipper shot. It'd be kind of funny if she was a tipper and she was a waitress shot, like a shot of booze. Yeah. Free Fall Burns. That's where all the names come from. Free Fall and all those. Those were later. Those were like 1996. They were added to the earlier stories. Their names were just changed to them. And you can kind of tell because they kind of don't fit. But because I did this a movie version, I acted them so they fit. It's like Morar's acting more like that character. Dill is more like that character. This other one is more like the character. Because you can act them out from differently than the script. You can make any script that's a little odd be good if you're good at doing the acting. And I think it does work. It's not just an Ed Wood thing where it's like, this is dumb. No. Anyway, so yeah. No, it's fun. This is Kal Kat, the Kal Kat story. You are watching Warped Corpse, the Warped Core of the finale here of the third movie. You don't need to add this to Star Trek rumors because it's the same rumor as before. Star Trek 15, because 14 was Section 31. Yeah, so yeah, it's not us. That's all I wanted to say. It's not us. Our fan films are different. It's funny that some of them think it's us, but it's not. It's not a Kal Kat Mark's Cards film. Yeah, but there is going to be a something with us, but it's not on Paramount Plus, obviously. Yeah, just thought I'd straighten that out. Yeah, it's kind of funny they started leaking a lot of our fan stuff. Where we're not being paid anything. This is a fan film. There's no money. It's not profit. It's a fan film. We're not making any money. Just thought I'd chime in there on that one. And then we're going to go to the set of the movie here on the 18th and continue production on the film. It looks like what we shot so far on our fan film, our third one here for this series, is about an hour, give or take. It's 85 pages into the script, but it's only an hour. So, yeah, it's going to be short. So it's going to have to pick and choose stuff from the next story, kind of like we did with both the Starcrackers one, the Space Vanguards one, and with Canary Space. The Canary Space one, we actually went on to do a fourth act within the first book, because it was the first book, and it was longer. It was longer by like 90 pages, so we ended up including the whole thing. In the case of the other story, we took some stuff from the next book because we needed it to end the story. It needed to come to a conclusion. Same thing here. It doesn't look like this is going to be a quadrology. It's a trilogy, and it'll just be a little longer, but not terribly so. Yeah, and there are places where things could be changed throughout, and the characters going their direction throughout. The works. Also and to clarify the people moving in and out of the story, characters. That's just the story was rewritten. Was earlier, that weird earlier time travel rip-off of City of Nature Forever. Really, that didn't happen in this version. It was changed in the script. It didn't wasn't the same at all. It was, no, they were from that time period, and they used the space-time eye in their own present to go in back to 25 years in their past. So it had nothing to do with that other story at all. No. Oh, yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so on to the next thing. And no, there is no Star Trek 15 in the works at all. That's all I wanted to say about that. It's not us. They've thrown out the origin story that they were going to do, and that's good, because that's not going to work. Don't start over with an origin story. What you do is an Elseworld story. Do a story on a starship with a new crew going on a space adventure on a planet, and they have to go to an ecological disaster. No con. I've said this before. No con, no supervillain. It's an ecological thing, or it's a planet that's off somehow thing. Do that, and then you have them on a planet, and then it's cheaper because you can have them on a planet. Yeah, that's just cheaper. Like they did Picard season 2, but don't do the things they did wrong in season 2. Don't have it be literally L.A. That doesn't work. No, have it be a fantastical world planet landing. Same thing. No, that's what you do. No, there's a little bit of a starship in it, but it's a ragged crew of Star Trek misfits, kind of like we've been doing for years. Yeah, that's why they think, oh, they Kal Kat's fan film. He's gonna make a start. No, I'm not gonna start. That'd be awesome, but no, you wouldn't know. I'd be the first to geek out on the set. You'd be the first to know. Okay, this is Kal Kat, the Calicaster. This is making of on the. Well, yeah, we completed the last segment. The last, I think it was 2 chapters. It's about 18 gigs, not like 19 gigs. About half of what we usually do with the other ones. Completing the movie, the third movie here with the movie. Silverfish Squad was the name of the original short story. Done in 1997. It's probably one of the oldest stories in there, because the California Divided or Colony Divided is earlier. It was probably one of the earliest ones. It was actually 88, 89. It was one of the earliest games. The Victory story is also in there, 88, 89. Clemens Road, Clemens Vengeance, they were all stories. It was Clemens originally, it wasn't Mako. And now it's been switched into Mako. I skimmed through the next few stories in would amount to scenes from book 4, and determined that we shouldn't do them. That all you need to do is really you have 88 gigs of space, which translates roughly to 80 minutes. Do about 35 to 40 minutes, or in other words, the Zydio story. Do the Zydio story as your ending. That's the ending, and that is from the 4th book. It's from the middle of it, and it also is in the timeline of the 90s. It's not related to the other one. I think the Divided Colony story wouldn't make sense to do that in here, nor would the Clemens Road, Clemens Vengeance. Not just because, oh yeah, another con-like bad guy running around, but also because they did that in the 80s so many times. If we have a story where Mako is essentially playing that character, the evil bad guy who is threatened by the Flint Dill character, who was supposed to be Bulmer originally. It was Volmer and Clemens is what it was originally. It goes back to the 80s in the game. And they were basically taunting each other on a train in the story. The early light rail train, because I had been on the light rail that was being built, and I got to go on the light rail, and I thought it would be cool if they did like an adventure on the light rail train. Now it's built. It has been many years since then, over 35 years since then, and it's like it doesn't go fast for one thing, so it wouldn't make sense. And it keeps having frequent stops, so the bad guy could easily escape, or good guy could just easily escape. It didn't work the way I thought it would work. Not like you're on a passenger train speeding along. It may sound like one of the Speed movies. It may sound like one of the Steven Seagal movie. It may sound like other movies that came out in the 80s, including later train movies, came out in the 2000s. But it's not. The fact that it has been done several times, In the story, I see that I've changed that, and I took that element out and had them just taunting each other on the ground. Even so, it's Wrath of Khan, but on the ground. And I keep saying, don't do a Wrath of Khan story, then proceed to do one. I'm not going to do one. Say, all right, then what happens? So I read the Zydio story, about 40 pages into this Zydio. It's the Zydio story, 40 pages. Do that. Just do that and have it end. Because that's your main bad guys on the planet. It's some of the good guys that return. And yeah, they're on this. They go and hunt Mako, and if they get him, then the vengeance story never happens. And if the chief and the other guys, they show up there, doesn't happen. It's kind of like you changed the changed ending of Canary Space. The last 20 minutes of that were completely different than the books, and they changed things around so that the evil Char and his friend duke it out, even though that was a later scene from book 2. Actually, no, it was not book 2. It was book 5, and that was just thrown in there just to say, look, they fight. That guy kills them. That was book 5. Originally, it was book 2, but then it was moved to book 5 when they put other stuff in between. It didn't matter. But here, it's the same idea. Do we want to have this story end with the same, like a knockdown, drag out, fist fight story with a sort of a con feel to it? No, we don't want to do that. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to shoot what amounts to adding necessary ending to this story. Also, you killed off the Bulmer character, so he can't be in the other story. You also killed off the Cassins lady, so she can't be in the story. So yeah, a bunch of other people. You said in the script, Lord Zook died, but no, put him in the story because he didn't die. So instead of the Blakladu new guy that's introduced at the last minute, there's a new guy at the last minute. Okay, it's just Zook. He's there on the planet. That makes sense. Zook. Yeah, that fixes that. Zook. It's just that guy that he met before on the planet. And then you can kind of do the Clemens Vengeance thing. Kind of do that a little bit because you're kind of saying, okay, it's Zydio victory. To go and find the ship. Pistelli and the others are involved. Yeah, you just kind of want to wrap up things in 40 minutes and be done with it. And have it in about 90 minutes. At about 90 minutes, that's what it'll be. And yeah, that's what you want to do. You don't want to overdo or overthink it. Just have it do its thing and then it's over. Yeah, there doesn't need to be, 3 books, 3 stories. That's all you need. You don't have enough material for a 4th movie. You don't. Those other 2 stories are derivative. They're uneven. They're weird. Having those other characters show up in that way is weird. Having relations and story arcs that don't work in there. That Flores brothers were gonna be these Matrix guys. They would have showed up, and there would have been them doing this and that. One of them would have died. The other one would have gone on with Alexander. Look around like a Mad Max kind of idea. Mad Max 2 specifically. Don't do that either. That Battlefield California Mad Max thing doesn't work because you don't have cars. You can't do the cars thing either. Even though we thought of it long before Pixar did. Long before Pixar did. But we can't shoot that anyway, so it doesn't matter. They just say, oh, no, you're ripping that off. I don't think that you need to have... Yeah, so it's mainly the rogues that are in the last one because it's part of the Clemens Rogue game. Role-playing game thing. Never released. Some of these build-your-own-adventure game things have appeared on the Vinesauce channel, but not mine. So that's, yeah. I don't think you'll ever find mine. They weren't transferred to off floppy disk, so you will never see them. The stories themselves may have kind of percolated into the mainstream. And I was not the one programming the games. I would write the text. That's all. I'd write the script. So I had the scripts. Yeah, I'd write the text. I'm going to put the text in. That's where the characters are going. David would program the text. The other nephew. And it was impossible to win them. And we don't necessarily need a further on story about the other adventures, the characters. I think ending it with that story links it up to these other ones well. It works with it. They just go and they one final showdown. That's cowboy western that way, and it's not really a vengeance thing because he never gets to do that. He never gets to that point. Never decides I need to get back at this Dill guy. It doesn't really make sense that he would anyway. So, because it was supposed to be Bulmer, it was supposed to be Free Fall, and Free Fall was never like that either. The way I reshot this whole trilogy so far, he was never like that either. So, really, it should have been Mako and Rishenko fighting each other. Or Pastelli even. Pastelli would make more sense because they were, it should be them. So there is a story with him and Pastelli, and it's the Zydio one. So that's the one you want to use. Yeah. So anyway, so that is we're done for the night and the evening, and gonna continue with putting this together tomorrow and see what happens. And this last 30 minutes of text that we did that was done quickly because there was 3 pages left, and I memorized them, so I just did them the way they were shot. I just went back and flipped over and memorized them. Like, boop, 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 boop. Here's what's going on. Also, I kind of I made the dialogue correct, so that when you put it together. And most of the bad guys are wiped out already. The only real bad guys they have to go after is Zook and the pirates. That's it. The story's over. So yeah, well, why overdo that? Why do the Halloween Kills type of thing, or the Halloween Less, whatever it was? You gotta have a new bad guy that's trained up by Mako and have him do stuff, and Donnie Whitman, but conversely, then he dies, and then in the Vengeance story, and then Whitman is the protege of, or I should say, Alexander becomes the sort of the Kenobi to young Cassin Skywalker, and they go on an adventure in the wastelands. Don't do that. No, we're not doing that. So even though we introduced the young Cassin's guy, it doesn't matter. He's just there. It doesn't lead to anything. He's just there. Maybe they open this scene with him sprawled out on the ground, and the bandits have taken him out. It's kind of what we did with the Canary Space one, and kind of what we did at the end of the Starcracker trilogy too, with the Space Vanguards trilogy. That was slightly changed from the script, a little bit, so that things ended, especially the Raxler part. That ends, thus none of the other stuff happens. And then there was that other special story where we sort of had the Q snap them into the realm so they could hang out together again. Have their final comeuppance. But those Q stories are more like a Mary Sue of our Mary Sue. So they're not technically canon. So if Q Lady Amanda goes into the future, it's not really canon. It's just fun. Sort of a Mary Sue. And so, yeah. So the stuff stuff here, it's all canon, but it isn't in a way. You can assume Q can mess with you. So it is, but it isn't. This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster. This is a brief making of on the end of this episode. This was the third and final chapter of this Warped Core. And there's, it went a little bit past the episode with the Time of the Planet with Mako and crew, and felt we could go a little bit into the next one. But not enough to matter, just enough to make the 90 minutes. But yeah, it had to be solved. So the best way to solve it in the story was to establish that the shapeshifter mirror guys were behind it, and the zombies, and there was another force that was behind it, the zombies. The bombshell and the whole thing was actually another Q, an earlier Amanda Q, who was actually the first Q holodeck girl. After Braun, who was the first boy, and that was Libby Clements. So she shows up at the end as a Rand figure on the ship. Yeah. So and they don't really explain how they got out of there. It's that they don't really have to, though. I don't think the other Star Trek people then realize their minds were changed. 2 or 3 of them say, "Oh, I didn't mean to do what I did over there, Captain. Captain says, that's okay. Alien influence or whatever. That's kind of fun. But yeah, so that closes that. Didn't want to go into the fourth and final story just because it didn't really work, and the other stories tell a trilogy of stories that work. It was originally, the whole thing says Space Timeline was originally not separated into two books, but then it became separated into two books. It was just the short story collection, Brown Press Universal, 1997, which compiled all that other stuff. So this was one of the later ones. There was no need to change that, make that different. In the end, the story wraps up the zombie story kind of off camera, but that's kind of how we had to do it. They've been, turns out that during the story they've been getting the zombie shapeshifters, and yeah. So if you notice, the green ones are on the bridge, and then there's some other ones left behind. That's because they have the rest of the zombies. Yeah. They dealt with them. I'm assuming that there will be some kind of a finale special of this season. This is not the finale, and that we'll have to come by that one. That isn't done yet. Warped Cores is clearly not a legacy episode. It's sort of a spin-off, and like the Vanguard Space and like Canary Space was. Also, it takes place 2 years before that Canary episode, Distant Destinies. That episode that we did during the middle of a year and a half ago. And so I thought it would be funny there was a scene where there was a Yanzadi colony ship attacked, and I thought, change it to a Canary ship. It's the ship from the other story. That's why in this timeline they had to go back and go visit that Canary ship, because they damaged the bridge of the Canary ship. I thought it was very clever to do that, to throw that in there. Mako, the reason that they go to that ship is because Mako damaged it. Mako in the other time. We're not sure who Mako really was in real life in the story, or if he was one of them from the simulation. He could have been somebody from the simulation. It's not necessarily need to know. But clearly Zara Janoli there was confused utterly by the whole thing, even though she'd probably been specially advanced, as well as the Techite Asloth and that kind of thing in the story. The Canary Space people in it too, and the backstory back and forth was funny. I kind of used an idea that Mark's Cards came up with on Thursday about them not realizing they're action figures. So it's kind of funny, and so that's in there. And realizing that they're not on a holodeck. It actually is a parallel universe because in Star Trek, in Silly Trek, in Sillian Realms, it's not just the Kal Kat, Cal Hazel person, Adam Brown character, who makes up Silly Trek. A lot of people make up Silly Trek. Be they liberal, conservative, in the middle, somewhere else, out there. They make up their own Star Trek, and their own Star Trek becomes associated, if I've known them. So even though the actual real Duick is a conservative, more of a centrist, more of a liberal almost, compared to her. But it is funny that in the story they play that as they don't really address that at all. But yes, there's also, yeah, and she's the main character in this in the zombie story. So it's kind of fun. There have been 6 episodes with Captain Duick, who shouldn't be in this timeline. So this is a discrete other timeline that's been happening. I'm assuming that it's going to catch up with the others, but as the Q ladies both explained in the story, it doesn't have to, because their thoughts created it in the first place, and it's kind of like how the holodeck girl was created, and the Elysian herself was created, and she just made this story in this universe herself, the Elysian world. I'm assuming that in Planet of the Fallen Ones, 700 years later, that they refer to the sector of warped cores as Elysian space. And that it's Elysian space. So, there you go. Yeah, so we have just seen Elysian space. We've also seen a little Valley Religious space, which borders it, Zydio space. We also seen some of the other stuff. They're near Weirdaloo and stuff kind of like that. Yeah, and it's not Keptera. It's another system entirely. It wasn't supposed to be Keptera. It was a name that got it. So I said Keyterra instead. And it does have elements of Marshall Sportius too. It's a copy of Grandmaster's clone who's been turned into a changeling, who's in there, who was the queen in the other story. Um, there's other stuff like that. It's also amusing that the Amanda Rogers Q, the other one that shows up later, looks like Michelle Roddenberry as a Dr. Chapel, and also Jessie Gender from the anime. It's not her though, and also that she is also the other figure is Alexana Troy. She's like 20 years older. Alexana Troy. 20 years older. She's 40, and then she's 70, 60 or 70, 60, 65. Yeah, 60. So she's 60. So yeah, it's kind of funny. So you have yeah. So, also there's some good gags in there. The Flint Dill was actually killed off, even though in the original supposed to go on to be the guy that he fights later on. Mako fights, but it's supposed to be Bulmer originally. So that was changed too. We decided that was weird, that shouldn't happen. They shouldn't really do that. Yeah, they just don't. Yeah, just make it a simple story about these guys trying to find the pirates, and they gotta fight their ship and stuff, and their ship gets knocked out of space, and yeah, that's all you need. You don't need to go any more complex than that. And even at the end, Abby Woods reappears, but it's a different timeline where she got married. Yeah. But yes. So yeah, there's some. Yeah. So yeah, 2 years ago we didn't know that one. Wrote the other stories. So yeah, that's the trouble with doing a story where you put the characters in a future event where they can't come back from. Just got to kind of explain it. So did the real people that they're loosely based on have to follow the timeline? Of course not. The emoji character the real character is completely different crew track than the other one, the helmsman one. She's a medical student in real life. Yeah, so there's that. Yeah. And then there's the aliens, the cat aliens. I take it that at the last minute there, the Starfleet people used their phasers and stunned the cat things. Stunned everybody, basically. And possibly Q was involved. It also kind of implied that the Locarno lady who shows up is kind of semi-Q herself, because she's wearing the black outfit, like she's a traveler kind of thing. Section 31 and Traveler. That's kind of cool. Yeah. It means the other timelines happen. The 2405 and 406 timelines happen. The 24, the leap ahead happens. The 2413 and they're in the party episode. But it's because Amanda Q wants attention. That's all. And who knows when the next episode will take place. Yeah, it doesn't. It's at this point, this season, the holograph Dom Zombie season has been Elseworld. That's fine. They should. In fact, yeah, the Star Trek Paramount people have taken on my idea, actually. And the next Star Trek movie will be an Elseworld movie. Yes. You guys got to pay me. Where's the money? Yeah, do a Star Trek that doesn't have to do with the Enterprise and crew. Just a different ship, but it's Starfleet. That's the only way you could do it. Make it make sense. That's the only way. Because then you don't have to deal with all the backstory and the baggage of it being Kirk or Spock or Picard or Riker. It's just a ship and crew going on a mission somewhere. Yeah. And then you can do whatever you want. Make sure that it's still Star Trek, though. Don't make it stupid. Don't do like Section 31 did. But yes, so yeah, there ain't going to be any money. I'm not getting paid. So I didn't write it. But I'll come up with something that's probably going to be similar. But yeah, this season's been fun. The premise for these episodes are based on Space-Time I. And yeah, they were short stories. They were a space adventure, time travel stories, with me as the protagonist, as the Mary Sue, before I knew what a Mary Sue was. And then when I did. Yeah, so, yeah, we knew what a Mary Sue was by 91. So yeah, I do. And yeah, the idea of their thoughts create reality means that the other universes happen, and they can happen apart from Cal Hazel and John Holder. They can happen differently for other people. So yeah. and there were hints that that's what was going on when other people stepped into the story all the way through, and the I did have to correct the scene at the beginning there, today's film shoot, and did correct it, so that was actually okay. She meant to do that. She was, different lady, meant to do that with the two characters, the Giannoli character and the Barboda character, and the other one and the Cassins character were switched, but they weren't really, because they were like, oh, okay, this other person is simply her sister, who is also a changeling. There, solve it. Don't have to go reshoot anything. Oh yeah, so put it together. Okay, this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and this is adding to the making of the 3-part episode. After 12 hours since the other story, that I did last night, last evening, and after all the comments on there, you can add this to the making of to the end. That ending with the Q makes no sense. It's like you just decided, okay, yeah, let's just throw everything at the kitchen sink, throw all the crew in there, and have them say that Q did the entire thing, and it's a pocket universe, and they're in the Q thing, and that's what's going on. I don't like that ending now that I think about it. That ending makes no sense. It's almost a, but if you end it the other way with them just being blasted on the planet, then it's kind of the Tron Ares ending, even though the story predates Tron Ares by a long way. This is 1997. That last story. So the Zydio. Actually, the Zydio story that it's loosely based on is actually 90. It's earlier than that. It's one of the games. It's loosely based on the Clemens Rogue trilogy. That's what mainly the last half of book 4 is. And because you started, or movie, I should say. So what happened is there's 4 scripts. There are 3 scripts that cover all of book 1, which was just the first part of a duology of space-time ice stories. The ones we picked for book, cherry-picked for a possible 4th story were from book 2, or the second half, and mainly the last half of that book 2. Mainly the Clemens Rogue, Clemens Vengeance Victory saga, as it was called back then, in the 80s, and then in the 90s renamed as something else. And then in the 80s it was Battlefield California. On the end of it, it was renamed to something else, California Died, and then something else. That would have been too much to add on to it. The Plunderers of Zydios part, I keep saying Plunderers of Zydios. That was something else. It was a No Escape from Zydios, with the Zydios story. And actually, I thought it was more funny than it actually was. At the time, I thought it was hilarious that these characters were like kind of gross and running around being gross. And that's in there, but it's changed. They gender swapped Teeth for a lady character who resembles more the actual the Elysian, the actual Chris Clinton that the story's based on. Then the other one does. Then the Rand figure does, or even the Chapel figure. They don't look like her. And you can add this to the end of this because I went on a tear about that other version, and I'm going to say no, don't do that. I don't know what to do with that Q portion at the end. That makes no sense. I guess it could be a deleted scene, or stick it in another context, or reshoot it. You could make it the teaser for a possible 4th story, which would be unrelated to these. You could go to the zombies and finish that. I don't think this story actually does solve the zombie story anyway. What this and having this story do that is confusing, because you've established for the first trilogy here that and the only trilogy here for Warped Core that so far that's it that they're not really zombies, they're aliens. They're Zydio and Bakladu and other alien races. They're hunters and stuff. Not to be confused with the Predators. That's different. They're not that kind of hunters. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious that the Zook character was killed immediately. It was supposed to be somebody else. It was supposed to be another guy. But it was Zook in this version. It makes more sense that the Hertzman thing with the other guy does open a can of worms as well, because it's not really supposed to be either of them on the planet doing that. It's not the incident of 2404 they keep hinting at. Something like that might have happened. The original incident of 2024 thing was a joke. It was a gag. When you go back to the Starship Legacy saga, and you look at those episodes in the early first season, clearly they're kidding. They're just mocking this misogynistic guy who's on the ship. He didn't cause an incident to happen. They're just mocking him. Yeah, and they're in on it because they kind of like him. They're grossed out by him, but they kind of like him. So, yeah. And this later character is kind of their whole, yeah, it's funny, they kind of like him. He's gross, but kind of like, I don't want him around as an antagonist. The other stuff that happens to other characters is not prevalent in that. So it's Legacy, and it was also the one before Destinations. Yeah, Destinations and then Legacy. That's right. So because it led to Legacy, because that character that he was based on was an inspiration for Legacy, which came later. So yeah, it was later. And then along came for this series, for this season, Duick was the inspiration for these zombie episodes and the other stuff, and the other captain who we don't know about, who clearly is supposed to be some sort of other Q or something, because she wasn't there in the other timeline. Where did she come from? She just sort of is in the story. These other events are happening around her. That's something for later. Don't do that in here. You don't need to do that. Yeah, do that in a Legacy continuation of some kind, a finale or something. Do that there. Put the Q thing there if you want to put the Q thing there. I kind of just want to reshoot it. I don't know if you need to necessarily reshoot any footage of this. You can end this story on sort of a mind-blowing, usual suspects kind of ending, or end it on another kind of. There was a movie called 10 Cloverfield Lane. It has nothing to do with this, except that it had kind of a similar bad guy doing things, or bad guy and threatening, and then they overdid the ending. They had the girl escape from the bad guy, and then an alien ship comes and she blows it up, and all this other stuff happens in the last 5 minutes. And the problem with that movie is it should have ended with her just escaping. That would have been a better movie. Same thing here. Yeah, same thing here. What should happen is this story could just end with them phasering the bad guys. They stunned them. And then the character who's apparently the judge comes up and says, Woods to Legacy, we've got him all. We got him. And return to the ship. Yeah, that's all you need. And then roll credits. Yeah, we don't know what that's about. But that's kind of a cliffhanger thing. So I think what's going to have to happen is for her not to say that. For her just to say that because she's not the secret judge. It's not the twist ending about the, like when I was confused about the ending of Baby Driver, because there were two guys that kind of looked similar. It's not that. It's that she is the judge person. Yeah. So it would be that if she was the Kevin Spacey character, came back from the dead and decided to be in the story. It would be that if she said that. So it kind of works that she says she's Woods to Chimera, or Woods to Legacy. Beam me up. We don't need to see that. They just need to look baffled and go like, "Oh, that's weird." And the fact that they then say, "Oh, we defeated the zombies off camera." Don't do that either. I don't, because you didn't establish that the Bakladu in the story are necessarily the zombies. They just look like them. You just said that the aliens using the time travel devices, space-time devices, which aren't used at the end of the story. I think you probably want to do something a little more like, I do kind of want to fix that ending. I want to fix that ending and make it punchier, and have it be. Yeah, it can be those one or two people, but it probably shouldn't be the judge lady. It probably should be Mariner or one of the other ones instead. And even though she is there at the end, there were shapeshifters going on. Yeah, that kind of didn't. Yeah, that kind of didn't. didn't work. I'll fix it. And then that's the end of the making of. Unless we added a little more making of. I don't think you will, though. I think that the story works if it just ends with them being stunned. But you probably want to have a little bit after that. I'm saying something. Otherwise, it's too much like the Canary Space one ending where they're, oh, we're from Starfleet and we've decided to help you out. I mean, that's a good too. Well, that is kind of there, but it's kind of not. I don't want to, over-explain and add new villains and throw in the Q bombshell at the end. That didn't make any sense. To say that, oh, yeah, Amanda's involved. Which means that if Amanda and the other Amanda, the two Amanda Qs are involved, they're R's, not Qs. that they would Rogers and Rumley, they would be, that would just change the dynamic of the whole thing and make it sound like it was Dream. I want the zombie season to have happened in a timeline, but not necessarily that one. I do want to have to clarify that. I want to clarify that. Yeah. Okay, making of, adding to this, just got done with the redo of the ending of this movie, and it works. Better ending. Having the characters do their thing and having it fit in better with Warp Core than having it be another Legacy episode. Having it fit in with Warp Core, have the Warp Core guys realize what's going on while they're in the meeting room, in the Nexus thing. It makes a lot more sense. It's like, okay, they go back, they realize, oh, they had to treat them, I guess, to get them their minds back because they were programmed to do stuff, to be on the spy mission in this other realm, Warp Core realm. The ethereal alien showing up and doing that, and also a lovely scene where we get to see a version of the time displaced Wilson Uhura, one of the favorite characters, who shows up. She was zapped into a space artifact, but there, and then there's a nice tie-in near the end where we discover that out. Another character they didn't do justice to, the character of Grey Towel, the other one, the Tal girl, is actually on the bridge of the other ship at the end. She's from the future, and so is the other lady. The Wilson Uhura lady is actually from the future, from 700 years in the future. And the whole preserver thing is all set up kind of like, yeah, so the Academy is kind of hinted at in there. And that's cool. And the zombie story is hinted at in there, but not said. So they didn't defeat them. They just said, oh, we're going to send you guys to deal with them. But it's a multiverse, and that the multiverse with Duick in it is actually not our universe. It's actually another adjacent one. So this whole season we've been following one of the universes through Legacy's 2403 season, but we also been following Space Vanguard, or Space Warp Core as well. And so maybe they stop them, maybe they don't. It's up in the air. Also, the usual suspect kind of ending. Also explaining that, okay, if this Nexus thing was messing with them, and they were toys left by children. Like Legos to be stepped on. Yeah, so, yeah, it's a better ending. It's better ending, it's punchier. It has time trap Locarno. I think the implication at the end is that the Victory that's rescued from the planet is actually some sort of a time ship, and then they have their people from the Time Corps. That's what's going on. And if they want to do other ones, they can't. Mako didn't die. He's there. If you want to use him, then you can't kill Mako. It'd be like killing Mario Brothers. No. But yeah, and apparently the bombshell actually just messed with the realm they were in. Didn't mess with the universe. Of course, the dots create reality there, so technically she did mess with the universe, and things did blow up and get killed, but because it's a game, it's all a game, it's all a role-playing game, it's all a LARP, it's the joke. It's a role-playing game, and no one dies, they get reset, like a game. The NPCs just reappear. That's great. I like it. It's a better ending. Yeah, so you have your main characters, and they admit who they are. Their minds come back, and apparently the Vanguard's people, there were 4 of them, were apparently hanging out in this universe 80 years earlier in 2403 than when they left, and they were asked to go there and check things out. I'm assuming the Vanguard is nearby, and that they let it go back to the future now. Yeah, cool. So, sure, why not? Better ending, more fun. Even though 240311 would be not really accurate but that's fine. It would be 2403 June right now, technically in Star Trek, but this is another timeline, so it's fine. It's before that. April, May, and June. It was just 3 months. April, May, and June. That's all. Yeah. So from in another timeline, and we spent it in this other timeline messing around. Sure, why not? It's fine. Yeah. It works. I don't think you need to add anything to the making of. It works. If we do something else with the other stuff, we will. We'll see. We'll see. It won't be connected to this necessarily, because really, yeah. What do you do from there? You kind of have 2 of the villains on the bridge doing a Section 31 creepy weird thing, space thing. What are they doing? Where's this other character? The helmsman looks like Emma. Yeah, it's supposed to be Lawson. Anyway, so yeah, but yeah, so we have that. Another victory. The victory doesn't die; it gets reset. So yeah, the victory is there. If David sees this, he will. The oldest nephew, if he watches this episode, he'd be like, "Yeah, I like that. I like how you changed it. You changed it." He would say that was Clemens originally. Changed it to made it make it was better. That sounds better. It's Clemens. Yeah. So, and all that stuff was before Next Generation started. That original game was like the original games. The victory games were 86 and 87. Next Generation has just started. Yeah, a lot of that early stuff. Yeah, and I didn't know what I was doing really. It was based on the California Divided one was based on a dream. It had what was like a Mad Max kind of dream where the hero character, of course, Mary Sue for me, was in a decimated California in a Kmart. He's living in it opens up with him in the decimated remains of a Kmart because it was the 80s, and then he has to go on an adventure. It's the end of the world. The world has happened. The end of the world, and there's the whole incident thing happens. There's several relatives and other people. The joke being that in these early stories, which were all kind of similar, that gag where the girl insults you in high school and says, "If you were the last person on Earth, I wouldn't even mate with you." That's the joke, because they end up being the last people on Earth, and that's the joke. That's the whole incident thing. It's just a joke. It's all that for a gag. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so yeah, that's so. Making of our little Thanksgiving episode, the final episode of the Warped Corpse, pure PS, Corpse PS. Yeah, the final Warped Corpse episode. I just watched the movie, and there were a few minor corrections, and nothing serious. So it's good. I'm going to download that here the day before Thanksgiving. It wraps up the Warped Core trilogy, and they're not doing a 7th one. But as I said in the making of the next one, that's what will be called Fallen Legends, and it will be Legacy's final episode of the year. Doesn't mean it'll be the final episode of the whole series, just of the year. It's played off as the final legend. We'll go on to that later. I'm just going to talk about this one here. So this is just this one. It was a series of 4 short stories. They're presented in the Space-Time Eye series. It was the final third of the first series Space-Time Eye novel, and then it was an additional episode of the next one. Actually, it was kind of 2 of the next one. Really. No, it was 1. It was just the Zydios one. We ended up not doing the second one. It was just that one. There was a little bit of elements of it in the when they're in the realm from the next one. but it was really just kind of, so it was a little bit of the next. So Space Time I was originally a storybook collection. There were just 2 books worth of this short stories, as aired in Brown Press Universal in 1996 and 1997. But the stories were from the 80s and 90s, and they included some very bizarre versions of other stories all the way through this trilogy, including one that was a City on the Edge of Forever type of story. I'm talking about this one mainly because I've gone on all the other ones, where it was a rejected Starcracker script, where the character. They didn't establish that they were holograms or that Q created them in the early versions of these stories. It wasn't until 1996 that they kind of said, okay, Starship locations has to have been Q, because otherwise how would your fan film have become so uber famous in the future and everything? It couldn't have. And then there was that Next Generation episode earlier that kind of gave your out there and said, like, okay, yeah, I'm saying the third person, my out. But yeah, the out was that the Q visited the children of Pine Hill, and he wanted to annoy Picard. That was a great out. It was a great idea. And he said, well, this will annoy Picard if I do this. And it'll annoy Kirk too, so we'll pull in Kirk, thus leaving the whole universe. One of the stories was that one of the kids from our school, from Generation, had died, and we were grieving over this kid's death. So we were like, okay, what happened if we recreated him on the holodeck and put him on the holodeck? But of course, Q immediately made that happen, and so there was this. But Q had already created previously this other character, so it's a reverse of Adam and Eve. Really, it was a reverse of that. He was created, then she was created, allegedly, in the timeline. And so the Elysian was created first to annoy Picard and crew. The Libyans clone, Libby's clone, and then, yeah. Obviously he wasn't really there because he was a hologram, and Q conjured him. It's not really real. But later on, in Voyager, they would establish they have a holographic doctor, and they have that ability to do that. So the story kind of writes itself, even though, yeah, it's 96, 97, so Voyager was on. So I was aware of Voyager and the Doctor. So yeah, the Starship locations had a further series at that college at San Jose State. Not for very long. And that's when Brown Press Universal existed. It's not a big it's not Universal. It's not tied in with Universal at all. It's just that's what we call it. It was more of the Starship locations. There was really only 2 episodes of it ever done for the 30th anniversary of Star Trek. We didn't really do any more after that at all for San Jose State the entire time. So these stories are in the middle of this, rewritten from this window. Also dream stories, or dream stories. As well, Jung Swan related, also called TMS here. There were. This was post the encounter of Libby, or the girl that was inspired by the character that had nothing to do with Libya. It was just that Libby was her name, and Libya, it sounds funny. Got Back to the Future, Libya. So it had nothing to do with Libya. It had nothing to do with being racist. But anyway, Libya was there, and there was this. But then she wasn't, and so it had really nothing much to do with her except that this is kind of one of her ideas. So was the stage is set. So in the Starcrackers universe, the Starship is called the Josh Braun after that kid that died. And in that universe, it would have to be explained in Space Vanguard. It's explained how he's alive, how he's a different universe, how that's going on. Well, it was later established that Silly Trek universe is a multiverse, and that in some parts of the multiverse, other things happened. So it's simply there. Silly conjured him. Your thoughts create reality in the Jung Swan universe, so Marshall Smartest universe. So they simply wished him to be alive, and he was. And he hung out with Clark, basically, in the other universe. And one of his stories, one of his episodes, is that he goes back in time to the 1940s. Because he really, really liked the Diary of Anne Frank. And I know it's offensive a little bit. He goes back, and he rescues her into the future. and it becomes his wife. And they had to go back in space and stop him. Might seem a little bit like City on the Edge of Forever. Yeah, it's a ripoff. It would be like if Kirk pulled Edith Keeler from the 30s and lived a life with him on a planet. A little bit like that Deep Space Nine episode Meridian, but this premise was written in 1991, so it actually predates Deep Space Nine. It had nothing to do with holograms and Voyager clones. It's a weird idea, but the pieces of that story are still there, implicit in this episode. I threw in the line Zabolvida just to throw it off. So it's kind of interesting going over this and going like, yeah, that's that episode. It still is. It's still there. And they're out in the story is that they really weren't from the 40s in the story. They were just aliens from the present pretending to be them. So they could get the information about the spaceship. Yeah, because then it makes sense. Then it's like, okay, he didn't really go back to the 40s. He thought he did, but the Q were messing with him, basically. Or a Q-like race was messing with him. So he didn't really go back to the 40s. Didn't affect space-time at all, because he rescued. There were a bunch of other time travel stories that were even more convoluted that weren't included. There were several of them that weren't included. The later stories were unfilmable. There was a time travel season of Starcrackers. It was unfilmable, where they kept going back and forth. That was addressed in this other Zydiar episode and the other one. The weird idea of doing that. It wasn't that the character was smitten for a lost person from their diary. That's screwy. It was just that we thought it would be a cool science fiction idea to have that happen. I wasn't thinking that it's messed up. Does that happen? Also, there was a movie with Christopher Reeve where he did something very similar to that around that same time period. So there was it was Time After Time, I believe it was called. So they did something like that. He goes back to the 1920s in that one. Somebody in the future and goes back to meet her previous self, and it's a predestination paradox, a little bit of grandfather paradox. So it's a paradox. It's similar to the song in Back to the Future. That's a predestination thing where she's reinvented. The song doesn't exist in the universe. If he went back and gave the information about the song to the guy over the phone, now it doesn't exist. Same kind of idea here, except these are aliens that are messing with him. They're not really Q. They're sort of aliens messing with him. And that idea is cool. I mean, yeah, they reveal, okay, she's really a shape-shifting alien thing. And sure, that's fine. That works. It's not meant to be that person. It's just, grab a famous person out of space-time and hang out with her thing. It doesn't, even though there was also a movie about that character. It's not that. It seems cringe. Yeah, it is cringe. But yeah, he's not really doing time travel. It's revealed that he didn't do time travel. He just thought he did, and these preserver aliens took pity on him. This guy that was out of time took pity on him, and they just wanted to give him a life in that other universe, so he wouldn't be dead anymore. It's a grieving thing going on. That's what's going on. Oh, it's kind of cool then. Okay. Yeah, so and the other stories are kind of similar to that too. I didn't want to do the story about the later stuff about the Vengeance episode. That would be too much Wrath of Khan-like. There's a few elements of that seem to already be in there in the Zydiar story when he faces Genoli again at the end. It's kind of in there. He faces him in battle. So it's in there. You don't need to do it again. You don't need to expand on it. And they land on the planet. You don't need to do the Stranded on the Planet story because he goes there. It's a short, condensed version of the other story. Victory episodes from that role-playing game. That was more of that. And rescuing the bad guy is, at the end, is not a ripoff of Wicked Part 2, which we just saw over the weekend. Because this story was written and filmed before I saw Wicked 2, and I was putting together this story as of last Friday. So yeah, it wasn't before I saw Wicked 2. Just afterward I saw it. So, oh, that's kind of similar how they did that. And it didn't make sense at the end of Wicked 2. It makes sense here that they save him because the bad guy, because he's supposed to be there, implicit in it. But other than that, yeah, no, it's fine. How does it set up the zombie story and the other story? That would be up for another day. This is the warp core and the end of this story. Yeah, so yeah, it's fine the way it is. I don't want to go on to the other story and ramble on about that. I don't just end it here. It's fine. It's cool. Enjoy warped cores. Yeah, it was changed to Ben and Castens, and I know this is a different Arlene, but it's a different timeline. So this other Arlene and the other brother guy are different people. They're just different people. So if you're confused with that, that's just a different person. It's a different Carrie and them too. It's a different different Henderson, different. They kind of reveal that when they're in the captain's table, which is a nod to the books. The captain's table. There was a series of books, pocket books. That was added, yes, but it kind of needed to be there to fill that in, and I did cut a scene out involving Aster and the other guy. Aster and Kiriyoshi have a little scene about going to dinner, and I thought that why did I put that in there? That really did not need to be added to the script. Have it just end with him saying, "Oh, it's the ship. We're back." You don't need that scene. It's awkward. It doesn't fit. I didn't cut anything else out. Just that scene throws off the narrative and where they are. The gaggy Captain's Log 2304. I'm assuming that in this timeline they're just in another parallel universe, and that everything that's been the Duick universe this season has been revealing that she's some sort of other extra-dimensional alien, similar to the other ones, and that's why she's there. I'm assuming they'll reveal that at the end of Legacy, which we will then get to before Thanksgiving. So, yes, we'll get to that one. But this one's going up tonight, the day before. So, yeah, enjoy the space-time, warp core, space-time high adaptation. Even though those were really short stories, like 35 minutes each. But yeah, they wouldn't have made great Star Trek episodes. They make great Silly Trek episodes. Especially the Silverfish Squad Robotech parody type of thing, where we couldn't really use the Robotech pictures and vehicles because it didn't look good. So we just used the Marine ship over and over again. That was fine. It's fine. It probably would look like that anyway as a pod because it would be cheap. It makes sense. They did do the Flip Dill killing scene. That was different than in the story. That was different because we wanted to just end it right there. Go out, end it right there. Anyway, so yeah, that's the end of. We didn't want to put Flip Dill and Bulmer in another episode later on, even though because it would have contradicted itself because he dies. it would have been gone. Also, Skippy and the other Azeroth and the other guy. Also, the explanation for why the Locarno and some of the others follow the bad guy is probably because he brainwashed them somehow, and they're not really them. They're affected by the timeline. Either that or we're watching the entire Warp Core series is the alternate Flodian timeline, where they're in the Elysian space the whole time, as a hint at in the story. It's a multiverse. It works. It's a pocket universe unto itself with space-time devices. Takeaway. Which they can't use a lot because that would be a horrible MacGuffin in any other context. It'd be a really bad idea to have like time pods where the bad guy just simply winks out. It works in this one because they're in control. The aliens are actually controlling they're going to take them away at the end, so they're not there. And it's at the other side of the loom or gobbly Cthulhu's loom. Anyway, so yeah, enjoy.